A little different style video for y'all today. So it's gonna be a lot of this right here. So if you don't like this, just let's play in the background, maybe just listen to it with your headphones. But today I have a message for dads. The way this all started is that I've got a bunch of buddies who are, either have just had kids or they're about to have kids, and they're just kind of the stage of life where my friends are. And so I was on the way to Yuma. I had lunch with a friend, and we were talking about business and life. And one of the things that got brought up was my son, and we were talking about this goal, the goals that I have for this year professionally, in shooting and then in other things. And I told him, I said, one of the things for me is that it's important for my son to see me trying to do hard things, having goals and aspiration, and seeing me put in the work to achieve those is really important for me for him to see that. And so that conversation actually got me thinking. I still had a bit of a ways to go, another like 3 hours after we had lunch to get to Yuma. And I basically spent that time like thinking about my son and thinking about my friends who are having kids or have just had kids or trying to have kids. And like, what would be the dad advice I would share with them? What would be the advice I would give to other dads, especially my friends, to make sure that they're the best dads they can be. And that's what this video is. So if this isn't for you, just give it a thumbs up, let it play, put it on mute. It'll help me out, help the channel out. If it is for you, if you're a dad, I hope you listen. Hopefully this helps you in some way, shape, or form. If there's something in here or something not in here that you feel like would be valuable, leave it in the comments down below. And really quick, the sponsor of this video is going to be Vulcan Watches. So shout out to Vulcan. They came on as a sponsor of the channel. We're going to do some watch content with them. But if you guys are looking for a watch, hit them up. Tell them Jimmy sent you. Let them know what you're looking for. They'll find it for you. Great group of guys. Awesome, super involved in the community, also into cars. But yeah, go check them out, go give them a follow. I'll leave them a link down below. To the point of this video. So I've got a list of things, of lessons that are things that I would tell other dads. And this comes from, I'm by no means saying that I'm the best dad, but this comes from being a dad, being a coach, going to school to be a teacher, mentoring kids, and then also being a pastor. So a lot of the things that I've observed and learned along the way, this is what I would share. The first thing I would say is hug your kids. Now, I know that sounds super basic and rudimentary, but there's a lot of studies that have been done on how much kids need hugs throughout the day to be able to fully develop mentally and emotionally. So you can look this up on your own time and read some of the studies, but anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute is what kids need every day of a platonic hug, just being held and with no other, they call it non-romantic because they talk about the studies as we grow up and we mature as adults, you still need those type of hugs. So some studies will say like 10 times a day, hug your kids. What I do for me is when James gets up in the morning, before he gets in the shower, before he gets ready to get his day going, I give him a hug and I hold him for 45 seconds to a minute. And I just count it in my head. I don't say anything to him. We don't talk about anything. There's no music playing. We're not watching TV. We're not doing anything. I just hug him and I just hold him. So that way, in like my mind, it's filling up his tank. So he's good to go for the day. But even as adults, we still need this. And so next time with your significant other or your girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever it is, next time you hug them, don't say anything. Just hold on to them. And when that internal clock starts to go off and they're like ready to like let go, don't. Just count in your head for 45 seconds to 60 seconds and see how they react. Now, they're probably, if you don't hug them a lot, they're probably gonna be weirded out and be like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, do we need to go see a doctor? Do you need help? Like, you're probably gonna get that reaction. But if they don't give you that reaction, I think what you'll notice is you'll feel their bodies start to relax. You'll feel the tension that they have start to just wither away. And they'll start to let go of a lot of the stress that they have just by being hugged. And that's really important for us to recognize as adults, because as adults we need that, we've got to understand that our kids need that too. Because our kids are introduced to different stressors than we were as at their age. Technology is very much a part of their life, and technology does stress people out. Again, you can look at all the studies on that. But whether we like it or not, it is part of their lives. So technology is in their schools. They're learning on iPads, they're learning on computers at a much earlier age than we ever did. So that means the stress that comes along with that is now being introduced to their life at a much earlier age. So they are walking around with stress that we may not see, but they have it. So that is something we've got to be aware of as parents. So hug your kids and hug them for a long time. Do it every day. I promise you it'll make a huge difference in their lives. Next one, tell them you love them. Again, sounds super basic, sounds super rudimentary, but it's really important that your kids know and have no shadow of a doubt that you love them. And one of the things that happens a lot with my son is that when he gets in trouble or he's being disciplined or he does something wrong, his immediate reaction is, do you still love me? And he genuinely means it. He's like worried that we won't love him because he's done something wrong. So one of the things I've started doing is telling him just randomly, like just I'll be walking by his room, or he comes running by, wants to play, whatever, and I'll be like, hey James, when does Daddy love you? And he says, all the time. And I say, okay, how much does Daddy love you? He says, a lot. I say, okay, cool. And then we go on. But it's just there's something about reaffirming for him, like saying it out loud, and then me being there in agreement with him, that for him to know that I always love him and I love him no matter what, that it's not conditional. And so kids need to know that. They need to hear that from you. Maybe you grew up old school and your dad never told you, like my dad never told me he loved me until like I was older. Like we just didn't do that in our household. Not because like, I don't know, whatever. It didn't happen, especially coming from a Hispanic household. You just don't do that. But now, being in my 30s, I now tell my brothers I love them. I tell my friends I love them. I tell my dad I love him, because there's going to come a day where you won't be able to do that and you wish you would have. So leave no shadow of a doubt in your kids' mind that you love them and that you love them no matter what. Number 3, if it matters to them, make it matter to you. Now, this is one of those things where it's like, again, I'm going to use my son as an example because it's the best way I can show it. But he likes to draw. He likes to make things with Legos. He gets excited about Minecraft and the things he's making. So he wants to come and show me those things. And if I'm just like, hey, I'm busy, and I blow him off, that's going to break his heart. But if I'm like, dude, that's awesome, that's amazing, like you did a great job, like you got to show that it matters to you too, because for him, that's all he's ever known, right? All he's ever known was the effort he's put in to make these things, and he's excited about learning new things. He's excited about creating new things, and that matters a lot to him. So your kids will do that, especially as they get older. They'll do different things, and like they may be involved in sports that you don't care about, or maybe they're involved in something at school that you don't care about, that doesn't matter to you. But you got to make it matter to you, because they've got to see that you care about the things they care about, because to them, that is a part of who they are. It's a part of their identity. And for you to not care means that you don't care about that thing, but that you don't care about them. So it's really important that you show that those things matter to you like they matter to them. So simply because they are a part of it. With that said, I do have a lot of drawings and paintings that are just scribbles that he's put up, but he's proud of them, and I love them. And if you guys pay attention, you'll see up there's usually some Legos or like random things he makes, and that's because he's excited and he wants them to be in the back of videos. So what do? I put them in there. And so there's little things like that all over our house, and eventually they gets too much. I'm like, okay, well, let's make space for new creations. So we take it all down, and he starts making new stuff. The next one is let them see you love mom. Now this one's a little tricky because you may live, you may have a weird relationship where mom and you are separated. Or, so maybe it's girlfriend or whatever, but it's important for them to see how you love other people. Not just women, but just people in general, but the significant other in your life is going to be the one they see the most often. So that you're modeling for them how to love other people. So if you treat your wife or your girlfriend with disrespect, you can pretty much guarantee your son's going to grow up to do the same thing. Like, so if you're kind of an a-hole to your wife, your son's going to be that way. And so like, it's funny, I see dads get onto their kids because their kids are like disrespecting their mom. It's like, dude, he learned that from you. Like, that's the way you talk to her. So of course he's going to act that way. So it's important for them to see you love and love well, whether that is their biological mom or not, and whatever. But it's important for them to see that, because you're modeling for them. There's no other way for you to teach them how to love a woman or love a significant other than to model it for them. So especially at like an early age, it's really important for their development to see that. Which takes me to the next point, which is they watch what you do more than they listen to what you say. And if you have kids, you already know they don't listen. All right, you can be like, my son will be on his phone, like walking, just running into stuff, and I'm like, James, 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 and he's like, huh, what's going on? I'm like, dude, like, get out of the phone for a minute and let's walk to the truck. But they watch what you do. They watch how you do things. If you notice your kids pick up your mannerisms without you ever teaching them, they pick up your phrasing without you ever teaching them, it's because they're watching everything you do and they're learning from that more than they are learning from the things that you're saying. So we've heard this all before, but it is important to be mindful that what you do is modeling for them how they're gonna do things. And that's kind of why I told my friend, I was like, dude, it's important for me that he see me chase after something hard, right? Like, trying to be one of the best shooters in the country is hard. Doesn't mean that I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna give everything I've got to it. And it's important for my son to see that, because I want him to see that model, so that way when he does something hard, he's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing dad and what he went through when he tried to do these things that were seemingly hard. And then he'll be encouraged by that and know that it's possible and know what that looks like. So the next one is kind of tied to this. These are kind of all strung together a little bit, but they don't understand your stress. So when we stress, whether it's about work or money or relationships or, whatever it is, like, the HOA is driving you crazy, like they don't understand your stress. And so when that stress is building up and then they're excited about whatever's going on in their life and they want to come talk to you and then you snap at them, they don't know why, because they don't see that connection. They don't see why those things are so overwhelming. They don't have a concept for why money made you stress out the way that it did, or why your work, your boss made you stress out the way that it did, that you lashed out the way you did at home, whether it was to mom or their sibling or to them. So they don't understand that. So you got to keep that in mind. They don't have a reference for that. So when you get upset and you're like, I'm just, you want to like blow up because of everything's going on at work, they don't have a way to comprehend that. That just doesn't, there's no framework for them there yet. It's just not a part of their life. So you've got to take a deep breath as a dad and be able to separate work or whatever the stress is from your kid. Like, you got to be able to walk away from that for a second, even if it's just for 2 seconds, to be fully enveloped in whatever it is they want to talk to you about. And maybe they just want to tell you they love you and then run off back to the room to go play. But if they're like coming here and they're wanting to talk to you and like, they're calling your name and like tugging at you and like you lash out at them, it's going to hurt them and they're never going to want to come in here again. So just keep that in mind. When I was a pastor, one of my pastor friends, Afshin Ziafat, I remember him telling me one day, he's like, dude, sometimes you just got to go to the car and sit for 15 minutes to decompress from the stress of the day and then go inside and be ready to give 100% as dad. So some of us, that's what we need to do as dad. Sometimes we need that time to decompress, even if it's just 10 minutes, just sit in the driveway for 10 minutes, let it all out, relax, then go be ready to be dad and leave all that aside from there. The next one, this was a big one for me growing up, and I see it with my son too. They want you, not the stuff. So my dad worked a lot for us and my brothers as we were younger, to give us everything we needed, to give us the advantage that he could to get a better education and have everything we needed or wanted. And because he worked so hard, he missed a lot of things that I wished he was at. And I didn't really, looking back, I didn't want the stuff. I enjoyed the stuff my dad got me, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed like the toys he got me and like, paying for sports and all that. Yeah, I enjoyed that. But I would have much rather have him been there for a lot of those moments that he wasn't able to be at because he was working. And your kids aren't going to remember the stuff you get them. They're not going to remember the clothes. They're not going to remember the shoes or, the toys. Like, they may remember a little bit here and there, but for majority of it, they're not going to remember it. But they're going to remember the memories they have with you, the stuff you did together. Even if it's y'all dry firing in the living room together, or if it's the trips you go on, or, the first time they went off-roading, or when you take them on roller coasters, those memories, those moments you guys have together, that's what they're going to remember. So a lot of times when you come home, the main thing your kid wants is for you to be there with him, to sit on the floor and play with him. And I know you're tired. Like, if you work physical labor, maybe you're a mechanic, a plumber, you work construction, whatever, dude, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you just want to sit and relax and have a cold drink after a long day. But I promise you, nothing means more to your kid in the world than to sit there and play with them, even if it's for 10 minutes, or to just lay down on the floor while they play. They just want to spend time with you because you're their dad. That's it. So make sure you make that a priority to do that. Take that time to do that, to spend time with them, and don't get so consumed with getting them the stuff that you lose sight of being able to spend time and enjoy those moments with them. Because I know that every kid, when their dad gets on their deathbed, is going to wish they had more time with their dad, not more stuff from their dad. The next one applies to me very soon because James is about to start playing soccer. Now, I played soccer at a decently high level. I was never good enough to go pro, but I played with guys who played on the national team who went pro, both here in the MLS and also in Europe. I've coached kids who have played on the national team and also gone pro. So I know a little bit about soccer. But for me, it's really important for me to be dad and not coach. So I've never wanted to coach James, not that I won't help him or coach him, but I've always wanted to just be dad. I've always just wanted to be there and to support him. Because there's so much overlap between being a coach and a dad, it's hard for kids to differentiate the two. It's hard for them to separate when you're being dad and when you're being coach. So the reason I say be careful is because I know some of you love it. Some of you love coaching your kids. You just love the sport, and that's awesome, and you do a great job, and that's amazing. But be careful that coach doesn't create scars on your kid that keeps them from seeing you as dad. So there are things you can do as a coach that, again, because in their eyes, you're coach and dad. They can't separate those two. Be careful you don't do things or treat them in a way that it creates a scar on them that will hurt them from seeing you as dad, as just dad. Because they're going to have a lot of coaches in their life. They're going to have good coaches and bad coaches, but they're only ever going to have one dad. So don't ruin that for them by being so caught up in being coach. All right, I'm going to move through these next ones fairly quick. They won't know how to become the person you want or expect them to be if you don't teach them. Your kids aren't going to just magically know how to change a tire. They're not going to magically know how to change their own oil. You're going to have to teach them how to do those things. They won't magically know how to be a good shooter. You're going to have to teach them that. So as a person, if you have an expectation for them to be a certain type of person, they're never going to know how to do that or achieve that unless you teach and show them how to do that. Again, this is something that sounds very basic and rudimentary, but a lot of times as dads, we have expectations for our kids to behave a certain way, to act a certain way, when we've never tried to teach or show them how to do those things. So it's really important that you understand that they're never going to get there if you don't teach them. You are teacher number one to make them into the person you expect them to be. It's not on the daycare, it's not on the school or the teachers or the coaches or anybody else. It's on you as dad to do that. This one is really important, very close to home for me, and this actually comes from a conversation that I had with a buddy of mine fairly recently, and it's don't give up. You know, a lot of times as dads, we feel like we're failing and you want to give up, you know, whatever that sense may be for you. But in like the grander scale, there's a lot of stresses in our life. There's a lot of things going on for a lot of us men, a lot of men's mental health just struggles in a lot of ways. And there are times where we want to give up. You're not allowed to give up as dad. Because the things that you would miss out on, the moments you would miss out on, the opportunities you had can never be made up for by somebody else. So it's important that you're always there. And, you know, one of the things that my wife told me early on was, I don't care if we live in a box under a bridge, as long as we're together as a family, we'll be okay. And so no matter what it is you're going through, you know, whatever it takes for you to get healthy, and maybe you can't give your family the things that you want or envision, or, you know, there's outside pressures. I mean, there's a lot of circumstances surrounding mental health. No matter what those things are, you being out of that picture will not make it better. I know in the moment it'll feel like that. We tend to feel like when we're at that point that we would be doing the world a favor, that the world would be a better place without us because we're taking up the resources that could be given to somebody else who would do more with their time or their energy or whatever it is. We have those internal thoughts that say the world would be a better place without you, but it's not. It will not be a better place without you. Your kids will not be better without you. Your wife or significant other will not be better without you. There is only one you, and nobody can replace you. So don't give up, because they need you and they want you, and the world needs you, because only you have the perspective and the input in the world that you have. No one can replace that. That got deep really fast. That's what she said. You may need to break the cycle. So your kids will either spend their entire lives running to men like you or running from men like you. So the type of person you are will determine the type of people that your kids want to be around. If your kids love being around you and you're a great father and a great role model, and, you know, they just love the moments they have with you, they're going to be drawn towards people who are like you. But if you're somebody that's miserable to be around and you're just, angry all the time and you're always lashing out at them, they're never going to want to be around you. And in turn, anybody that reminds them of you, they're never going to want to be around. And this is especially true for girls. So if you're a girl dad, if you look at girls, like you can look at your wife, your girlfriend, you can look at ex-girlfriends, whatever, you can look at people at work, whatever. Girls typically gravitate towards men that are like their dad if they had a good dad, or they stay as far away from men that resemble their dad if they had a bad dad. And they're like a key indicator of that. But all kids are that way because dads tend to either be a safe space, and if they're not, they don't want anything to do with it. And so you may have to break that cycle. You may have grown up in a family that just did things a certain way and it was toxic. And so my father-in-law, Jody's a great example of this. He, grew up in an area of Michigan that wasn't great, and this cycle of life continued to happen over and over again, and he saw it for what it was and realized, I got to get out. I've got to change the narrative for my family going forward if I'm gonna live a different life than what everybody else around me is living. And this generation after generation, things just kept happening. So he left and was homeless for a while and traveled all over the country until he finally landed in Texas, met his wife, and then, now lives a godly life and has helped plant multiple churches, is very involved in his church, and is just a great father to his girls and now a granddad to his grandkids. So, and he's now having an impact on another church plant and starting a new business. And you just see how he got out of this toxic environment and now is flourishing and has continued to flourish everywhere he goes, and then helping those around him to flourish. So you may have to be that one that breaks the cycle in your generation and in your family to make things better for your kids. So this next one I got from Will Petty. So Will Petty is somebody I consider a friend and a mentor, and just a great instructor, and has a very innovative mind in the industry, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for him and appreciative of all the conversations we've had and all he's done for me, both professionally and personally. But we had this one conversation, and I remember him telling me when my son was very young, he said, dude, you only get 18 years with your kids. So he said, when you think of it in terms of 18 birthdays, 18 Christmases, 18 Thanksgivings, 18 summers, that's it. 18 first days of school, 18 spring breaks. When you start putting it in that and you start realizing like where your kid is in that. So like, if your kid's in like elementary school, let's say second grade or whatever, or, like let's say they're 8 years old, that's only 10 more. You've only got 10 more birthdays, only 10 more Christmases, only 10 more spring breaks until they're out on their own and they start their own family, and maybe they move across the country or across the world or whatever. And you don't have that time where you're with them every morning and every night and getting to spend those precious moments with them. So you only get 18 years of that. And he said, when you put it in that perspective, you realize the clock is starting to tick down. And so you start taking advantage of those, and you don't want to miss those moments. You don't want to miss the summers. You don't want to miss the spring breaks or the Christmases or the school field trips or whatever it is. Like you want to take advantage of those because they go away quick. But on the flip side of that, it's never too late to start over. For some of you who may be watching this, who may be a little bit older and your kids are already graduating out of the house and maybe they have their own kids, whatever, it's never too late to start over and make up for lost time. Like I mentioned earlier, like in my family, there was saying I love you wasn't something we did. And I know a lot of guys are that way, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that for you and your family and your culture or whatever. But in the recent years, I think we realized how much we missed out on early on. And so like I spend more time with my brothers and talking to my brothers now than I did when I was a kid, when we lived together in the same house. I spend more time now talking to my dad. Well, not as much as I should, but because he's busy building a race car and living the bachelor life. But I spend more time now with my dad, and we have better moments together than we did when I was a kid. And so it's never too late to start over. If you missed out on those moments early on, there's nothing that's going to replace that, but it's not too late to make up for lost time and to spend time with, your kids or your family, whatever that may be. So these are the last two. And one of them stems from a conversation that I had with Taylor, and he was, kind of having a freak out moment. And I told him, and this is true for him, but it's true for every dad. You have full permission to be the dad you've always wanted to be. The only person stopping you from doing that is you. So for me, I always wanted to be the dad who was at all of my son's stuff. And the only person that's stopping that from happening is me. So like any opportunity there is to be at school stuff, I'm there. And that's just because my dad didn't get to do that, and I know how much that meant to me. And so like I'm sure it means something to my son, so I want to be there for those moments. And my dad was tired from work, and he didn't have time or the energy to play with me when I got out of school. So I try to make an effort to do that with my son. So like as soon as I get done here, we're gonna go play Legos. But like I want to be the dad that I always wanted to be, and there's no one stopping me from doing that but me. Like my wife's not gonna stop me from being the dad I always wanted to be. My friends aren't gonna stop me from being the dad I always wanted to be. You're like, oh, well, I have work or this or that. Bro, the work's always gonna be there. I promise you the work will always be there. And if for whatever reason, the job goes away, there's always another job. Talk to some older people, and they'll tell you the work will always be there. There will always be work to be done one way or another. You'll figure it out, but your kids aren't always going to be there. So take the time you have to enjoy those moments and be the dad you've always wanted to be. Like you may not be like, I'm never going to be an NBA player, right? I'm just not tall enough. I don't have the skills to do it. I wasn't good enough to play soccer professionally. There's a ton of other things I can't do because of outside factors. I can be the best dad I've always wanted to be. There's nothing stopping that from happening. So you have permission to be the dad you've always wanted to be, so go do it. And then the last thing that I will share, and so like I talked about at the beginning, Woven is a sponsor of this, and so in another episode that never aired, Taylor and I talked about a little bit about watches, and he asked me about why I wear a watch. And this watch is my Omega Speedmaster. It is it's a monumental watch for me. It means something. It was a milestone watch for where I was at in my career and things I had going on at the time. And so that's part of the reason this watch means a lot to me. I wear this watch. I got this watch. I wear watches for a lot of reasons, but one of the questions I get is, why do you wear a mechanical watch in a digital age? You know, we have smart watches, and there's a bunch of reasons behind that, but there's two main reasons I wear a watch. They're kind of a dichotomy, a weird relationship between each other. And one is that with every ticking second that goes by, we're reminded that our time on this earth is finite. And so every second that goes by, that's one less. And so it's slowly ticking away. And we don't know how much time we have here. We don't know when our last breath or our last moment will be on this earth. But we do know that time is counting down. And so we now have less time than we had before. And it's just always slowly dwindling away. So that's one reason I wear a watch, because it's a reminder that time is finite and we don't have an infinite amount of it to make a difference on this earth. The other reason I wear a watch is because it reminds me that every second that goes by is also a deposit into something greater than myself. So every second, every moment that you have, you can use that moment, just like we put money into a bank account. You know, we're saving up for our retirement, you know, saving up for a house, saving up for whatever it is you slowly put away over time. And eventually it accumulates and you have this vast amount. And so every second that goes by is a second that I can put towards something that matters. So whether it's a skill, learning a skill, every second that I have to practice that skill, I'm putting away to make me better at some point in the future. Every moment I have with my son, that's something I'm putting away into turning him into the man that I want him to be, that long term he will pass that on to next generations. Every moment I have with friends, you know, I don't want to waste these moments, these seconds that we have. And so I value those and build these relationships and friendships over time. So the time that we have, use it and use it wisely. And so for us as parents, as dads, these moments that we have are dwindling away. So use the moments that you have to matter. You know, we're all chasing eternity projects. And so people build monuments, they build the pyramids, they build whatever to try to outlast themselves, to show the world, you know, that you achieved or did something. The greatest achievement, the greatest show of your achievement is your kids. And what you do with them every day, in the little things every day, in the morning when you have breakfast, in the morning when you take them to school, when you pick them up from school, when you tuck them in at night, when you spend time playing Legos with them or watch them play Minecraft, those moments accumulate into making them something. We don't get emotional on camera. Those moments accumulate into making them into somebody who will impact the next generation and generations to come. And it creates this trickle-down effect to where you become this tree planted. That's why we show family trees, because you become this root planted that turns into a tree where generation after generation, you can see the men were becoming better and better, but it all started with one. That's my spiel for the day. Hopefully it helped some of you. Hopefully it mattered for some of you. And hopefully you guys all go be great dads. And we'll be back to regular content after this. So make sure to like, subscribe, karate chop that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bring your Legos so they can see. You mean the glitch Lego? Whatever you want to show them. They haven't seen you in like 15 years. Show them what you got.
Oh, this the glitch Lego.
Yeah, show them. Show them what you got.
Oh, I called this the glitch Lego. It was my masterpiece. But then suddenly the glitch come down in the roof.
Oh, I
and
see.
And the glitch hits and this and there and look, this is the puddle of glitch.
That's the puddle of glitch? Okay,
Yeah.
well go fix it. Let's go fix it. I'm coming.